That's so funny.
And I am now recording.
Hey, Dan, Dan, this is Jim. Click on
Yeah.
Michael and allow him to be host.
Gotcha. Make host. Yes. Done deal.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're going to get started now, guys. And we're going to get moving. And hopefully everybody else will come in along the way. I'm Dan Meredith, and I'm here with Nina Tucker and the rest of the Small Business Council, Meadowlands Chamber Small Business Council. And we're going to welcome you today to integrating your whole self into your business. This is something a long time in the making. We've been looking forward to. We have three really awesome, very positive energy people here with us today. And we're hoping that we can make a cross between your life, work, and the other people around you, and how looking into all three of those together just make life so much better for you. And in turn, increase the way you run your business more positively, which in the end has got to help us set our businesses on a more positive direction. So I'm going to turn over to Earl Peterson, who's going to be our moderator today. He's going to introduce our panelists and introduce Felise Berman first.
So our three speakers today are all here to address certain aspects of this changing world that COVID has given us. Our work environment has changed, our home environment has changed. So we've created integrating your whole self into your business. Felise Berman is the founder and director of the Shiva Shanti Yoga School. We are all dealing with new stresses in life. Through meditation and breath work, we can learn how to better deal with them. We also have Erica Joy West, a transformational coach. She can help us deal with work, home environment. Your wife is Zooming in the kitchen, or your husband is Zooming in the kitchen. No one can eat. Kids are in school in their bedrooms, and dad is in the basement. And then we have Dr. Josh Torres, the managing partner with Torres Coaching Group. When he spoke last year, I got a great tip from him. And that was on who are the influencers. You have a decision maker that you are working with, but who is influencing that decision maker? And it really changed how I now present projects. So let's start off with Felise Berman, who is going to kind of make us feel better as we start this session today.
Morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Felise Berman, and I am the founder of Shiva Shanti Yoga School, originally on Park Avenue in Rutherford. Up until COVID, I closed the space because it was too dangerous, but I have been teaching online and virtual, and my teachers have been as well. So now I'm trying to create a new business structure to go virtual, because I'm not sure about brick and mortar at this time until COVID is really past. So I'm very honored to be here, and I'm looking forward to also hearing the other speakers. I just thought I would bring up a few. If you look in the chat side, I wrote down a couple of things, if you can open that up. And I just thought, what are the main things we're all dealing with first? And, stress right now for all of us is a big deal. So one thing that I did in my business is create an environment that was very soothing. I went out of my way to have a soothing workplace. Even you see behind me, I have this picture. The minute you see this picture, it kind of imprints. It's like, oh, okay, you change, you shift a little bit. And so when we're able to create a more soothing environment around us, even if it means you're locked in a room, that room needs to be a place of peace for you, so you can emanate your best self. And, stress in the workplace today with COVID is overwhelming. And not only that, it also affects the main thing that I talk about all the time, which is breathing. And in yoga, it's called pranayama. And breathing techniques are really instrumental for reducing stress. If you notice, every time you're crying or heaving or something terrible has happened, what's the first thing someone will say to you? Take a deep breath, calm down. So if we can learn to utilize that in our everyday lives, like take it from our yoga practice, the microcosm, into the macrocosm of our business world and our life, we can start to see, okay, like I'm breathing very shallow, and that shallow breath is like shallow living. So let's do a full yogic breath together, and let me just teach you that. Now, keep in mind, the full yogic breath is not force. It's not a force. It's about filling entirely. Some schools of thought will say keep it shallow to the beginner because they're not ready for these deep breaths. But I like to teach the whole yogic breath, which has 3 parts. So I want you to practice with me, just thinking about this, eyes open or closed, it's up to you. Now I want you to just breathe through your nose with your mouth closed. And I want you to see the apex of the breath come up to the space right at the top of the 3rd eye, which is the 6th chakra, and then move the breath consciously down. Fill the chest and let the clavicle bones expand. Fill the back body, and then breathe diaphragmatically. As you inhale slowly, count to 4. And as you exhale slowly, count to 4. And see if you can create equanimity in the evenness of your inhale and your exhale. So like this. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. If you can do that 3 times before you go to a meeting, just that alone, just take 3 solid breaths. Now remember, it's 3-part breathing. You're breathing in your upper chest, your middle chest, and your lower belly. So I want you to do that one more time, 3 breaths, again, filling up all the way down into your lower belly. And remember, the exhale is the releasing of tension and negativity, and the inhale is bringing in new energy, new light, and a new moment to begin, right? So when you let go of that exhale, you completely let go. It's like you don't hold on to the anger, you don't hold on to the frustration, you don't hold on to the breath. You release it so you can create space for a new breath. Begin. 3 breaths, just good, conscious, solid breaths. I'll count it for you. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and X, 2, 3, 4. Now I just want you to know that there are 4 parts to the breath. On the top of the inhale, there's a moment when you pause. And at the base of the exhale, there's another moment when you pause. So I want you to notice the 4 parts of the breath and do it one more time. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, pause. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, pause. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause. Now, that's enough. I just want you to take that technique and use that before you go into a meeting or before you go into having an argument with somebody, and say, okay, I'm just going to take these 3 breaths, conscious breaths, this way before I do anything. Anything that's important, anything that I have to do. Instantaneously, the parasympathetic nervous system will start to calm down. The next thing that comes up will be the mind. It's like a monkey swinging from tree to tree. What do I have to do? What's next? What's on the agenda? So meditation helps you to calm that constant chatter in the mind. But if you can't breathe successfully, you will not be able to move into the meditative part. So if you close your eyes and you say, okay, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to give you 3 simple steps for meditation as a very beginner rule. Find a seat that you can sit in comfortably. Find a seat in your chair. Don't move. Step 2, do not move your body. Step 3, focus on your breath. Watch the breath coming in and going out. The reason I tell you not to move is when the body's not moving, eventually the mind will follow, because the mind is jumping from branch to branch, from thought to thought. So first, you sit. Second, you focus on the breath. Third, you don't move. Do it for 2 minutes, not even if you can only handle 1 minute. I don't want you to ever feel like it's overwhelming that I have to meditate for 30 minutes a day to be somewhere with this. Start out as a beginner and be a grateful beginner, right? Just learn how to breathe deeply and fully. And that's step 1 for bringing yoga into your life. The step 2 is creating an environment in your workspace that adds to that soothing nature. My studio in my school, you walked up the stairs and people would be like, oh my God, like they were just like blown away. And it was nothing fancy. It wasn't done expensive. It just had the home feeling of, you could feel the love and energy that I put into my business. And I want you to think about that in your business. Say, like, what can I put into my space, like plants or anything that uplifts the energy in the space. So you're going to practice this week breathing deeply through the nose, not the mouth. Like in the gym, you go inhale through the nose, you exhale through the mouth. In yoga, we do not. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. 3 steps for meditation. What are they? Can anybody tell me? What's the first step? Find a seat you can sit in comfortably.
Oh, yeah. Don't move.
Second step, don't move. Third step, focus
Breathe.
on the breath. All right. Now, what's going to happen is the mind is going to come up, thought after thought after thought. And it would be dishonest to say, don't think about the thought. Nobody can do that. What you do is you let the thought come up, you observe it, maybe you process it a little bit, and then you release it. And the next thought comes up until there's a space between the thoughts. That space is what I want you to find. Sit 2 minutes and just see if you can find the space. It's like space between the clouds into the infinite universe, between each thought. That's what I'd like you to start with. So it's 9:17, my time is up, and I want to hand it over back to the presenter. So thank you so much and have a lovely day.
Thank you very much, Felise. That was great. And I'm going to try and meditate in the middle of work tomorrow when things start to get stressful. So let's go over to Erica Joy West. She's a transformational coach, and we've all seen the world change this last year. How we do business, where we do business. Some people have returned to work to only be sent home time and time again because of exposures. Others are working out of their basements. Some businesses have gone virtual. So how do we deal with all of these things?
Thanks so much, Earl. Before I dive into that question, because there's so much to unpack there, I just want to give you a little introduction on who I am, so you know who you're listening to. So as you said, I'm a transformational coach and consultant. I mainly work with children and adults and business leaders to evolve their communication and make powerful shifts. And so I love this idea of bringing your whole self to work, and that we're doing this concept because, you know, I'm a business owner, as I think everyone on this webinar today, this is the Small Business Council, right? So as business owners and presidents of our companies, we're called to leadership. And when I think about the first word that comes to mind, when I think about bringing my whole self into something, and I think about leadership, is authenticity. right? And being authentic has really become this sort of almost trendy gold standard for being a successful business leader. So, you know, it's become a bit of an industry jargon, leaving us all a little bit puzzled about what it really means to be yourself and how to bring that into your business. Well, I can tell you, I think I've been a nonprofit executive leader, guys, just shy of 20 years. I don't know what happened. Just shy of 20 years. I've been in human services and fundraising, and I was leading teams. I was raising thousands of dollars for organizations, had the high heels, the power suit, the high energy, patented smile. When people looked at me, they saw success, they saw high energy, and they saw fun. When I looked at me, I saw a scared, insecure, indecisive girl with no self-respect. At the time, I was on the doorstep of another failed relationship. I was $27,000 in debt for the third time. And I was at the height of a 14-year struggle with food addiction. On the outside, everything looked perfect. And on the inside, I was falling apart. Have you ever not wanted to show people who you are because being authentic would mean risking everything you thought people loved and respected about you? Somewhere deep down, I knew that if I wanted to be a leader in my business, I needed to become a leader in my life. I had to move beyond my comfort zone and evolve my professional identity to meet myself where I am. And at the time, I hired a coach that helped me connect with my vulnerabilities. And it was in learning to connect more deeply with myself and my pain. And that's where I found my personal power and my strength. And with that power, I formed healthy relationships and partnerships. I started financially earning my worth. I found recovery. I started my own business. I took leadership in my life. So now when other people see me the way I see me, I learned how to use my own vulnerability to give entrepreneurs, like everybody here, permission to fully be yourself. And find the courage to be leaders in your business, but most importantly in your own lives. I love what I do as a coach. I work with people every day on the most vulnerable parts of themselves so that they can change their lives. And that's why I'm so excited. Everything that Felise, I'm just like taking notes, because shallow breath is shallow living. Wow, what a metaphor of yeah. And this idea of our disconnection with self and how the breath allows us to connect with self. And what I hope will come out of this conversation, and what I'll talk about later, is we're so deeply disconnected from ourselves. And because we're disconnected, we get stressed, we get overwhelmed. We're going to take the principles that we talk about today, you're going to be able to apply them to your life, to your situation, and learn what it really means to bring your whole self to work. So Earl, to answer your question, you had asked me, what do you do, right, if you're having to work from home? And can you share the question with me again?
Sure. It's just more on all of our work environments have changed. I now work exclusively out of my basement, which I love, but there are stresses with that. There's another member of the Small Business Council whose business keeps closing because people come in who have been exposed. So that's very stressful for that business. Felise talked about having to shut her business down and work completely remotely, and that's got to be different. So how do we deal with all these changing environments?
Yeah. So as business owners, one of the things that we always need to do is to be solution oriented. And I think about flexibility and adaptation. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Dan Siegel. He's an interpersonal neurobiologist. And one of the things he talks about is the internal states that we have directly impact our connection with ourselves and our connection with others. So there's two types of internal states. I would argue that there's three, but we'll talk to Dr. Dan Siegel. That there's receptive and there's reactive. In receptive, we're open, right? We're open to whatever comes. When we're open, this is a space that allows for creativity, for innovation, for love, for compassion. And then there's another state that's reactive. It's closed. I'm dug in. This is the way it has to be. It's rigid. And a closed heart usually occurs when we feel threatened. Stress, right? Stress isn't just like, it just comes out of nowhere. Stress is because we're threatened in some way by our circumstance. What do you take it to mean that you have to work in your basement? What do you take it to mean that you can't reach your clients because of because of your work situation? Whatever you're taking that to mean, that means that my business is going to fail. That means that people are going to lose respect for me. That means, well, guess what? I'm sure you're fearful. What's the emotion that's involved with that? I'm afraid. So I'm going to be closed. It's got to be this way, right? So a big part of being able to manage all the changes that happen is having an open heart and being flexible and receptive and adaptive, being able to take that adaptation, being able to take your flexibility and say, how do I adapt to this situation? And then solutions present themselves. Because when I'm closed, I'm in fight or flight, right? I'm afraid. I need to, guess what? Our nervous system shuts down. I can't think. So if I can't think, I'm not going to come up with solutions. So I would say to pay attention to what your internal state is and be able to say, where am I staying closed in my life? Where am I staying closed in the situation? Where am I dug in? And think about how you can be more open and receptive and flexible.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Dr. Josh, tell us a little bit about your business and how have things changed? Because again, as we've been discussing, the world is changing exponentially over this last year, or has changed exponentially over this last year.
Yeah, and so TCG, or Torres Coaching Group, one of the things that we focus on is strategy, 3-year plans, 5-year plans. How do we help organizations to get to where they want to go? How do they meet their market's necessities? How do they stay current with what's happening in society or their steep realities? How do we use talent to maximize potential? And so those are the things that we typically do. Over the last year, or years now, ain't that weird? Yeah, and so what we've done is there's been this massive shift from an organizational platform to an individual platform. And so how do I deal with X, Y, and Z? How do I approach some of the realities in our life? And so some of the things that we're noticing, obviously, and as Erica was mentioning, is the whole stress factor. And so there's 2 ways that we help people to identify or put a hands on their understanding of stress. One is stress is built out of fear, filth is built out of failure. And we go, the potential of failure creates fear. The realization that this fear is possible creates stress. But here's the reality of stress. And the way I like to say it is, stress is requiring from the grape what the grape cannot do on its own. What do I mean by that? You can grow a beautiful grape, and a grape can do everything it can to get the nutrients from the ground. However, in most vineyards, they require that there are rocks put on the roots of the grape so that the roots grow downward to the greatest soil, right? And so that's what most vineyards do, or what they'll do is they'll test and they go, oh, we need to add more weight. And the weight presses the roots down. However, the grape can't press the roots down itself, nor can the grape take itself off the vine and get into the thrashing floor and to get pressed and become wine and all of the beautiful things that are out there. And so to require of the grape what the grape cannot do for itself is stress. And so in most businesses, we are expecting to do stuff where we say, oh, well, we have to do this. The reality is that you have no control over those things. You're putting more stress on yourself because you're requiring of yourself what you cannot do on your own, or that you are not designed to do. And so when we hit those markers, we then go, how? Now, I like to say strategy plus strengths equals how. Strategy is what needs to be done. Strengths is how you get it done. And that's based on the gifts and talents that you bring to the table. If we focus on that versus deficit, which is often what we always do, what's missing, what do we have to fill in, what are the gaps that are there, those are realistic expectations that we all have in every platform of our life, right? There are deficits. But when you work in the hole, the tendency is to dig. Well, here's the reality. When you're in a hole, rule number one is what? Stop digging. And so instead of getting in the hole and dig, go to your strength, your storehouses of what you do well, and go, okay, what do I have here that I can actually use? How can I make things better with what I have? In that mindset, we're taking our eye off of the deficit and looking at the surplus. Looking at surplus helps us mentally, physically, spiritually, socially, emotionally, all of those factors. Why? Because that you have an abundance of. And so we focus on that, we're going to be able to move forward and through some of these gaps. And so that's a platform that we've used with organizations, teams, and all of those wonderful things that has really benefited us as we work with the individual. And truth be told, when we work with teams and organizations, the person always shows up. Why? Because it's people who move the mission forward. People move the needle. And so when you work with the person, you're able to help the organization. So that's how we've shifted from our platforms, from the team and corporations to individuals. And that's 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you for that. Felise, you talked about creating a comfortable workspace. I'm in my basement. I spent about 3 months fixing it up, cleaning up, and it's nice. But what else can I bring to my work environment to make it nicer? Is it plants? Is it pictures of my family? Any suggestions on how to create that space?
It's so interesting that you said that, because while Dr. Torres was speaking, I have my window open and there are birds. If you heard the birds chirping, and I was like, oh my gosh, everybody can hear the birds. And then I muted in the middle of his talk, and I realized that this is the environment that I live in, is that, you know, I have pictures of, you know, the ocean, things that bring me joy and peace, sounds of birds singing. Like I create like a little waterfall. I have rock salt lamps. Like I create a place, quartz crystals, natural environment. I bring the outside into my environment so that I feel like I'm in nature. And that just because you're in the basement doesn't mean you can't create that. It takes a little bit of creative thinking of how can I make this space that I'm stuck in for the next year or for the last year, how can I make it more healthy? Like I have UV lights here to kill germs. I have air purifiers. I have bright lights, windows open. I mean, I really intentionally create a space where I bring nature in here so that I'm not stuck in a room by myself in a house, that I can feel the presence of nature all around me. Even if you only have that one window, it's like you keep that window lit and open, and then maybe you bring like a small salt rock lamp into the room because it purifies the air. And then like one picture of like, what's your favorite place you've ever been that you sit, like for me, it's watching a sunset. Like if I sit at the edge of the beach and watch the sunset, if I have that picture somewhere in my workspace, I just look at it and instantly I feel calm. You know, like having things around you that make you feel cluttered doesn't make you feel calm. So like cleaning and organizing and creating a Zen in India, like it's really, there's a science to this about where to put things and place things in a room so that it's optimal. And I think you have to think about the space you're in as being part of your peaceful tranquility and state of mind, because your external environment reflects your internal environment. So you cannot change, you can do as much as you want around your house, but it's got to start here. Like, oh, I want to have a picture of the beach in front of me so that when my mind becomes, you know, really geared up, I can bring it back. And then I can sit and look at that picture and breathe. And in yoga, we do that with mandalas and yantras, but it's as simple as just filling your space with like healthy things like plants and photos of things that make you feel happy. Like, you know, once in a while, I remember my nephew when he was like 3, he used to grab his belly, throw his head back and laugh really hard. And when I needed to think of joy, I would think of that moment, like him, like that moment and only that moment in time. So, you know, we have to create those little spaces around us. If we're stuck in a basement, we have to make it joyful, whatever that means. And honestly, minimalism is, and less clutter is a part of that. Like for me, and I have a lot of tchotchkes, and you know, students bring me little things and gifts all the time. When I close the studio, I put it all in my house. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do with all these little statues? But really get down and like every day get rid of something, like donate it. Keep the space clear, because the space is an extension of your mind, right? The clear space that you sit in is a reflection of the mind that you live in.
I wouldn't want you to see my desk right now.
I know, and I'm not judging. Listen. If I showed you my whole room right now, it's not perfect, but you know, where like my windows are open, I can hear the birds. There's something about it that gives me joy. It's not perfect.
I really liked what you said about decluttering, because I see clutter and I think dust and taking care of it and cleaning it and whatever. Erica, you talked about having to meet yourself again, about being in a career for 20 years and not being happy. What's one thing I can do to help meet myself in a new way? I think I know myself, but is there something else where I can just kind of say, hey, Earl?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a really good point. Is like we think we know ourselves, right? And I think that the moment you think you know is the moment you don't know. And we're all trying to be experts, and experts of ourselves, experts of topic, content, experts of, you know, we have to have all the knowledge. And again, when I talked about internal states of being open and closed, the second we think we know, we're closed. We've just closed ourselves off to possibilities. And part of that is learning more about who we are and what we think we know about ourselves, you know, because if I think I know who I am, I'll never get on the dance floor because Erica has 2 left feet. If I think I know who I am, I won't take that risk. I won't run that marathon. I won't go for that business deal. If I think I know he's not going to buy from me, that colleague doesn't care or respect my work, I've just closed myself off. So when it comes to knowing ourselves, I actually had developed a process called PEACE. And I think I've shared this with the Meadowlands Chamber before. It's a 5-step process. PEACE as in pause, explore, acknowledge and ownership, curiosity, and evolve. And just quite simply and quickly, pause is when we're triggered, allowing ourselves to be like, "Ooh, that's our alarm clock," to wake up and pay attention to ourselves. Because we're all triggered during the course of a day. You're triggered by something someone says, you're triggered by a situation, whatever it happens to be. And that's our alarm clock to really pay attention to ourselves. What's going on there? Now I can explore what's coming up for me. So I actually keep a judgment journal. I keep a little journal literally in the notebook of my phone, and I write down any thought that comes up. If I'm triggered, something happens, I feel stressed out, usually we feel our emotion first. So we're like, oh, I'm stressed. I feel this thing in my body. So I'm stressed, I write that down. What's the first thing I'm thinking to myself? Because, Josh had said this so beautifully before, if we're focusing on our deficits and not our strengths, or not our surplus, our abundance, well, guess what? That would trigger fear. That would trigger stress. So more simply, are we focusing on what we want? Because what we want expands. So in explore, I'm really looking at what my thought and feelings are. In acknowledge, then it's at that point I go, oh, okay, this is less about the other person or less about the situation and more about this idea or thought that is creating stress or fear in my life. And now I can take ownership of that because I've just acknowledged it. And then the C is curiosity. Okay, now that I'm free from the barrier of this thought and I've challenged it, now I can kind of look outside of it and get curious about solutions, or get curious about myself. Why do I think that, this client won't buy from me? What's making me feel that way? Okay, now I'm curious. Now I can ask myself those questions. Well, how is that a problem? And then from there, I can evolve my relationship with myself or evolve my relationship with other people as a result of looking at them differently, right? This internal state of where you're at, looking at what's coming up for you with curiosity, and then being able to evolve, which is to shift and make decisions differently. So that's one of the things that I'll say is an easy phrase to remember that I came up with when I thought about writing peace. And peace, I developed peace out of necessity because at the time I was working from home, and I've been a caretaker for my elderly grandparents for over 3 years. And I was working from home. My grandmother had Alzheimer's and dementia. My grandfather was ill. And so someone with a cognitive disability like Alzheimer's, they don't care you have a webinar going on. They don't care that, there's things that are coming up for them. So it seemed very stressful. So I developed peace as a way for me to be able to go deeper with myself, to be able to show up for her differently. So here's something that you can think of. Behavior, someone's behavior or your own, right? Behavior is a manifestation of what we believe, not who we are. It's a manifestation of what we believe, not who we are. So when someone acts a certain way or you act a certain way, why do I keep doing this over and over again? I said I wasn't going to eat ice cream. I said that I was going to, start posting on social media 3 times a week, but I didn't do it. There's a thought that's behind somebody's actions or behavior or emotion. And that's not who we are. The thought is standing in the way of who we are. So, Earl, to answer your question, to get to know yourself better is to be able to pause, think about what's coming up for you, and ask those questions, those deeper questions about where is that coming from? What do I believe? What am I holding on to? How is it a problem? And see what the answers are so that you can show up for yourself with a little bit more compassion, ease the stress and overwhelm, and replace it with what you want instead. which is usually joy or, whatever it is for you, peace, fun, laughter, whatever you want to bring into your world and your space, just like Felise says to bring into her office. It's what are you bringing into your mind? What are you bringing into your heart? And then that will change the whole landscape of your whole environment, because this has shifted.
That was really wonderful. I learned a lot by that. I kept writing the little notes as you were saying that. So
Yeah,
if you wouldn't mind actually putting that in the chat column, I think that might be
absolutely.
a nice little thing that people might like to take away with them.
Okay.
Josh, many of us can agree that feeling overwhelmed and short on time is far too common and can have damaging effects on our businesses and our lives. What do you suggest that we can do to change this from a destructive pattern to a positive one?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here that I often deal with in the coaching clients that I work with. Two things. One is word association. Perfect example. Is that a picture behind you, or is that your actual lower level? Earl?
Oops.
That's your real basement, right? Okay. You're muted, so I can't hear anything.
Yep. That is a printer stand for my wife's portion of the office in the basement.
Okay, so here's what happens in most cases. Word association becomes a big issue. So you would say, this is your basement. Now, when I think basement, I think creepy, dark, unfinished, spider webs.
And it was like that before 3 months ago.
And I would say that you no longer have a basement. I would say you have a lower level. I would say you have an office in your lower level. I would start to change the verbiage. I would be most aware of the verbiage that we use, because words are significant to us. And so I often talk with leaders. I go, no, this isn't what you have and what you don't have. You have liabilities and you have assets. Start thinking about what you have and start thinking about what you want it to be, and consider for a moment that your words hinder your actions. And so one of the things that Erica said, it was what we call the belief cycle, right? Your beliefs dictate your actions create results, your results either affirms or challenges your beliefs, which then causes different actions. And so what we would say is that I will never challenge your beliefs. As a coach, I will challenge your actions. So you don't believe that changing your verbiage matters. Spend the next week changing your verbiage and see what happens. See if your verbiage helps you to think things differently, put your steps in differently, respond to things differently. The other thing is control. You had made reference to influence and control. There's a lot of things that you influence. There's very little things that you control, even in your own business. How do we know this? How many businesses have lost over the last 2 years? You can do everything you want to do, and you can do everything within your control. But at the end of the day, you can only influence. And there's a lot of things that you do not control and do not influence. And so when we talk about our time frame, you have to consider that you have 24 hours in a day, and everyone has those same 24 hours. Working more doesn't mean you're producing more. It just means you're working more. When you're able to identify the things that are specifically you, specifically within your control, and the areas of your influence, now the magic can happen. Now we can start looking and going, okay, well, this is what I control. I control my actions, right? And so you can't fix anything you don't build. What do I mean by that? You're waiting for the perfect thing. You're waiting for the eureka moment. You think, if you do X, Y, and Z, these things are going to be great. Or, but everyone else covers the A, B, and C. That's the front of the alphabet. We go, no. Create something. Make it ugly. Get it to the point where you're just no longer embarrassed by it, right? You just go, hey, give it a shot. And when you have that ugly thing and you try it and you go, hey, let's see what we can do with this. Try it out and then perfect it as time goes on. We often want to create something perfect in this vacuum, and then we go, now we're going to give it to the world. Well, here's what happens in that point of stress. They can either accept or reject it. And so a lot of business owners go, I have to make it perfect behind closed doors. I have to do everything right. There's so much pressure to do it right, and then I'll give it to the world. Well, the problem is that at that point, you've already passed your point of impact. Why? Because the point of impact is right now. And so toss out the ugly thing as long as you're no longer embarrassed by it, right? You don't have to be proud of it. Be embarrassed by it. You're just, as long as you're no longer embarrassed by it, and then give it to people and figure out how to make it better as time goes on. If you wait to the last minute, what will happen is you will toss it out there and you'll only have two choices, accept or reject. Problem is at that point, there's so much rejection that happens. It's crazy. But if you believe that the product is already kind of ugly, but you're just no longer embarrassed by it, rejection becomes, or this criticism, if you will, becomes a part of your process of making it better, but it's already out there. And so a lot of these leaders do this. They go, I'm going to use all of my time to create this perfect thing. And then you go, it's antiquated. It's no longer meeting where we are. That's even more stress because now you just wasted a whole lot of time. Is that fair?
Excellent. So I want to open it up to questions from everybody out there. Anyone have questions for our great panelists?
Can I just comment on Josh's, just that whole thing was just so fantastic. I just have a comment to share. What came up for me is for us as entrepreneurs, you hear the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, guess what? Maybe you should break it and make it better. And that's the entrepreneurial sort of mindset. And I'll just follow up by saying, when I talked about closed and open states, perfectionism is a closed state, right? It's closed. If you're trying to be perfect, you're dug in, you're saying, this is the way it has to be, and you're not open. And when you're not open, you're not flexible enough to see other solutions, to see ideas. And so, this is the way we've always done it, right? You hear that a lot, right? Or if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, I loved the way, Josh framed that, and what came up for me is, well, break it and make it better and get out of your perfectionism. So awesome.
I had something similar with my business. I mostly did work with small businesses. And when COVID happened, nonprofits were devastated. They couldn't hold events. They couldn't raise money. So I changed my business model, and now I do probably 70% of my work with nonprofits, and it probably will be 100% because they've now found a voice through video production. And they can reach many more people and show people what they're doing. So that's, I agree. Sometimes it's good to break things and fix them. Any other questions from the group out there? Okay then, Felise, meditation and breathing are a great way to relieve stress and feel good. How can we implement these tools in our everyday lives and thoughts? You said 2 minutes a day. Should I do that in the middle of my workday? Should I do that at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day? Is there a best time to do it?
Well, if you look at it as a prescription, it's unique to every single person. In yoga, we really, through Ayurveda, we look at people's doshas, which means that everybody is unique. Some people are high stress, some people are kind of low stress. They go through the day very sluggish. So if you say to one person like, oh, you have to do this in the morning, that this is the way, it may not be right compared to what's called your dosha, which, you might be a really high energy person and you wake up like you want to go. Maybe that person needs to sit, right? Because they want to go. And that's the person I'd say, okay, knowing that person, I would say, your inclination is to run and do. So at that moment, try to sit and not do and see what happens. And take that minute at that time of the day when you're scattered and try to collect yourself. Now, for those of us who are kapha dosha, which is kind of like, we're kind of slow, we walk through the world like easy, and you know, that person needs to be like, get up in the morning and meditate. So you have to look at who you are as a person. You can do this any time of the day. Never do it while you're driving or, you know, in the middle of a lecture, but these tools can be done at any time. But look at your personality and say, what I have found is typically when I don't want to do something, it's when I need to do it. When I don't want to stop and breathe and take a moment to reflect, it's usually I have to ask myself, which I really liked her peace thing, like, you know, to acknowledge, to explore, and to have the curiosity. All of those things have to come in when you're about to sit down and meditate. The best thing in anything, any practice, is to do it on a regular basis and typically at the same time every day. Because that's really where you start to see evolution. It's if you were going to practice the piano, you would practice a few hours a day. You would take every day and you would practice. So if you want to evolve and really master something, you should, well, I don't want to should you. It would be beneficial to do it at least once a day at the same time. Now you pick the time based on your dosha. If you're not a morning person, you might want to try to work in the morning so you can overcome that resistance. Why am I not a morning person? Why do I have to wait till after I drink my coffee to do anything? Like, these are the questions that you ask, and they come up in meditation, right? So while you're meditating, that question may come up, and I tell you as a meditator not to push it down. Pushing your thoughts down creates repression and has deep psychological impacts. Do not repress stuff. Let the emotions come up and go, wow, I don't like to go before coffee because, you know, blah, 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 blah. Then say what comes after that. Then start to breathe. It's self-analysis. It's like you'll get in the shower every day and wash your body and your hair and your fingernails and brush your teeth, but you won't clear your brain. Meditation is like cleaning the brain. It clears all of the constant chatter. And once you get to that place of clarity, then you can implement all of these great things that you've all suggested. But when the house is full, how much more can you add in? Empty the house out, the brain, i.e. your brain. Create some emptiness. Not easy to do. When to do it? Listen, if I tell anybody to do something that must be done this way, I typically feel that they push away. So I like to give them the option of saying, listen, do it when you can, start to do it. If you're resistant to it, just do it when you feel you can do it.
Excellent. We are coming up on 10 o'clock. I know Dr. Josh Torres has a hard out at 10, so I'm going to toss it back to our to Nina and Dan to do the final goodbyes.
Okay. Thank you, Earl. That was wonderful and a great job moderating today. I'd just like to thank everyone for coming today and our participants, our presenters today, Felise Berman, founder and director of Shiva Shanti Yoga School, Dr. Josh Torres, managing partner of Torres Coaching Group, and Erica Joy West, NLP transformational coach. I think we all got a lot to take away today that we can help improve ourselves personally and professionally. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day. Enjoy.
You too. Take
Bye.
care, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Enjoy the
you.
beautiful
Thank you,
weather.
everybody, and Erica.